What's up, everybody? We're back with another show. Um, Tonight we have Mr. Nate Parker and Shelly Wood Lucas. Um, while we're waiting for them both to get in the building, tonight's show is we're going to be talking about the consequences of your work. And you're going to see through this show tonight when you put your heart in something, you know, say for the right reasons, and you see the results that come out of it, you know, sometimes, you know, later down the road, you might not see it, but uh, the stuff that you do definitely affects other people and in ways that you could never, ever imagine. So, for instance, um, a few years ago when Nate Parker did the Birth of a Nation movie, we're going to talk about some of the things that came out of that. Uh, that I don't, yeah, well, I can say for myself, I didn't expect. And as we're waiting for Mr. Parker to slide through, um, I'm just going to have uh, Mrs. Lucas come in, and we're going to chop it up a little bit until Mr. Parker gets in here. What's up, big sis?
How are you?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Good, good.
So, for those who don't know, Shelly Lucas Wood is well, she's having some problems. Is the great 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 granddaughter of Reverend Nat Turner. And as soon as she gets back in here, they own the farm. They still own the farm where Reverend Turner was captured and everything. You know, I'll let her tell the story.
Well, you know what? I was kicked out, but now I'm back. So I may miss a little bit of that. So where did you end up, Terrence?
The farm. Um,
Farm.
that I was talking about, you know, that you guys still have the farm, and I didn't get into how many acres. So I was like, you know, so I'll let you tell that story.
So we still own the land in which he was captured. Which, you know, I've always grown up just calling it the cave, Nat Turner's cave. And it's not really a cave, as everyone knows. He was hiding kind of in a hole with some bushes over top to keep him out of sight. And so we have been blessed. We were blessed by my great grandfather who purchased. We have a front farm and a back farm, and which totals almost 500 acres. And as to have land and to especially be Black and to have land and then to have the historical, part of it, it's just been something that our family has always treasured. Up until recently, we had to actually, there were each of my great uncles only knew the way to get back to that area. And we had to, it was deep in the woods, but it has been identified. We have something in the ground to identify the area. So we have, been able to go back as a family and to take, just to reflect and show, all of the generations as they come up, this land. So it's been wonderful to be able to have it. But as I've told you before, this has always just been my grandfather, right? So the whole Nat Turner thing, was that's something that we're pretty much a kind of humble family, right? So, just the when you hear people so excited to hear about them, you really don't think like that. But after reading, all the information, then that's when it really sets in. Say, my God, I'm such a lucky person just to have some of that blood.
It was definitely it's definitely strong blood because um, for a man to pull off or have the guts to even do what he did. Um, but the man of the hour is here.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to like to introduce to some, reintroduce to others. What's
Hello.
going on, man?
How you doing, my brother?
Doing great, man. How about
Thank you
yourself?
for having me. I'm wonderful. Very happy now. I think of all the interviews and all the press I've done, and I've done a lot. I'm most excited about this one. So thank you for bearing with me in my time constraints. I feel like I'm jumping from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, but that's the world we live in. But Miss Shelly, I've been very excited to speak with you. It's been a long time.
Same here.
Yeah, our camps were connected when we were searching for and then helping facilitate, the remains of our hero to get them back to you. Kelly Dietz, I don't know if you remember her.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, she was
Dr. Dietz.
Dr. Dietz is a very close friend, and I have to say, of all the things that I'm sorry to jump right in, but of all the things that I've been able to do, in my career, I think. It wasn't just bringing the story of our prophet Nat to life. It was being able to have any hand in helping return to your family what should have never taken the journey that it took.
Well, you just have no idea what that meant to us, and to be able to have us to finally be able to talk about him, because before Birth of a Nation, we did not.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
It was fear. What do you know? When I went to Southampton and met with a man that I'm not going to say his name, not because he did anything particularly nefarious to me, but I had opportunity to meet with the people that were in, the involved on a state level there, and
Yes.
And spoke with them. And it was interesting because I went around and talked to people, went door to door and talked to people, Nat Turner. And at his name, the film hadn't come out. And at his name, it was like a chill ran down people's spine. And the people the people that would talk to us, that would speak to us, were after a while they warmed up. They talked about why that fear existed and how the association with that name would incite the type of response from the whites in that community that could get you killed or get you harmed. Not long after the film came out, as you know, the monument to him on that road that I have so many pictures beside, and I have a very spiritual story to tell you about that if you remind me, how that was shot at and shot down. I heard of things from this man that he said he knew of a person that knew of a person that knew a person that still had a relic of Nat Turner's skin sewn.
Yes, the chain purse.
Yes, yes. And there was a conversation of a wallet, a conversation of a lamp, the type of barbarians, the type of demonic activity that this country and that has been involved with when it has come to brutalizing the bodies and desecrating from a spiritual level the bodies of people who look like us, and and people like to glaze over those things because they're not comfortable to talk about, and because we lack positions of power, we have to fear consequence. So I wanted you all to know, as we did that that documentary that we did on National Geographic, and even with the film, if they just whatever they describe me as, they will never describe me as afraid. Nat Turner gave me strength to tell Nat Turner's story. I fasted. When I was trying to tell this story, nobody wanted to help. Nobody in the industry, people that looked like me, everyone was afraid. And I can remember money would get committed, and then it was as if someone talked to the person, and then money would be taken away. And I can remember crying and being broken so many times along the journey. And I talked to my mom and my grandma, and I was telling them of how hard it was, and how the people weren't stepping up and helping me. And I said, I've tried everything. And I remember my grandma on this call saying, "Well, baby, have you fasted?" I was like, "No, grandma, I haven't, but I'm going to start." And I fasted I made a pact with God. I said, I'm going to fast every Tuesday until the Tuesday and Thursday until the financing comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally fasted every Tuesday and Thursday for months until we got all the financing for that film.
Wow.
And it's emotional for me because it just in an instant took me back to that place of feeling like, well, if the ancestors are with me, you know, and the Lord is on my side, then this is going to happen and something good will come from it. So, excuse my getting emotional about it, but it means very much to me. I know we're going to talk about a different film and whatever, but it means more to me than you can imagine being on this call with you and being able to talk about these things with someone who is connected to that legacy in a more direct way.
Well, you just, as I said, have no idea what is meant to the family to finally, us feeling free to be able to be proud of him and to say who we are. I am probably one of the older grandchildren or great grandchildren, which my great grandmother was his great granddaughter. So my mother is the matriarch of the family, and she just turned 88 in December. Wow. So his great granddaughter, my mother grew up with. So she got a lot of info. I mean, she heard a lot. So, but just the hush, right? So I'll be 60 in a couple of months, right? And to finally be able to just to be able to be so proud, and I read about it in school. So I grew up in Virginia, in Portsmouth, and I read about it. And I was like, but of course I couldn't say who, this is my family. But, some people just get caught up in the younger generations. I think it's kind of are now getting caught up in the name opposed to who he really was and where they came from to get to him. You have to understand how you got to him before you can understand him, and, just being able to understand all of the ancestors, my grandmother, my mother, she's still here. So she knows the story. My grandmother, my great grandmother, to know them and to know stories from them. And now to finally be able to talk about it and to share it. And, I really, really wish you had a chance to have gone to the farm where, as I was telling Terrence, the Nat Turner cave site. So that is the day of the last eclipse. A couple of my cousins and we went out to the cave site during that eclipse. I tell you, there was no wind. There was nothing moving, no birds. It was such a spiritual feeling out there. And we could definitely feel something, right? And I took a picture of the eclipse, but the only thing came out was a cross. In this video is a cross. That's all you see. Right above the area in which the site is.
Let me tell you my spiritual experience with the prophet Nat. So after I did the film, we shot in Savannah. I would have shot in Virginia, but their tax credits, money. They gave me more money in Georgia. And I reached out to the governor. I was like, "Is there anything we can fast track so I can my money can go longer?" But they couldn't put it together. And so when we're done, we're driving from Savannah back up to Norfolk. I'm from Norfolk, Virginia, and I actually went to school at Churchland in Portsmouth. So we were on the road and we saw the monument, and I went specifically there.
I'm from Maryland.
Hey, all right. Hey, look, this is the United States of America. We might be related, all three of us.
Exactly.
We're not that far apart from each other. I'm on Eastern Shore. So we crossed the Chesapeake Bay Tunnel. You keep coming up, you go right past my house.
Okay, wonderful. But yeah, then the placard, that's on the side of the road. And I got out with my wife, and the kids were in the car, and no one was around. No one. Not a person as far as you can see, nowhere. And I walked up, and we were reading it together, and all of a sudden, my hand to God, we started to hear singing. My hand of like a choir, an angelic choir. My hand to God. I look at my wife. I said, "Do you hear this?" She says, "I hear it." And I looked around. No one's around. But at the tree line,
I know where that is. I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, we heard, and I looked to the car. I'm like, "Is the radio on?" She's like, "No." And we're looking at each other like, it was as if it wasn't just me, where I could be like, "Man, I project." We heard it together, and we just sat there and listened until it stopped. And then we got in the car and we left. And I've never forgotten that moment. I've told very few people, more people now that we're on this. But you telling that story made me feel super comfortable. I know the melody. I know how it went. I can hear it when I close my eyes. I can hear it. I remember it as if I was there. It was a spiritual thing, and I knew that there was something happening. So, it was what it was. It is what it is. But I know what I heard. So it's when when Nat prayed for a sign and an eclipse came.
Yeah.
There's something to it.
Yeah.
There's something to it. There's something to it. So I'm glad that we have an experiential connectivity in that.
Oh no, I have something even better. So the day that we received the remains back, we had Mayor Hatcher, and there were these other ministers that were there. It was a small group. So before we started talking, they did a prayer. And we're standing there. The box with the remains is on the table. We're in a hotel suite. And so he begins to pray. And, we're standing and holding hands. And all of a sudden, I feel just like a little sniffle. So I'm a very controlled person. I am a very controlled. So I don't know these people except my cousin, Sean. Right. So I'm standing. And then I'm saying, all of a sudden, a little bit more. And then all of a sudden I start to shake a little bit. I said, "Okay, Shelly, you're losing it. I don't know what's going on." I'm talking to myself now and I'm listening to the prayer and I'm saying, "Okay, Shelly, get it together. And as I'm starting to sob, you feel it building, right? And I tell this story and I don't understand it because I'm not a very emotional person where I cry a lot, right? My cousin, if you all saw the piece National Geographic, Shauna cried the whole entire day, right? So I'm the one keeping it together. Well, I will tell you, at the end of the prayer, I was screaming. So I lost, I couldn't walk. They had to carry me over to the sofa, right? And at this point, I knew I couldn't control it. And I will tell you, from the pit of my stomach, I wailed and wailed and wailed until I got it out. And, but I'm still conscious to be able to hear. So, there are these cameramen that are in the room, and, the other people, the ministers, and all I can hear was these people. I could hear them. Because I guess they felt what I felt. But that day, I did not understand until that night. I got back to the hotel room and I was like, I just felt that I think I was the vessel. Him finally being free. After 187 years, to be back with your family, and to just to be released from that final bondage, right? And it was and ever since then, I've talked to I've spoken with some pastors and some spiritual people. I've seen things so differently now. Things are so different with me now. And I don't know why I was chosen, but I was the chosen one that day. And he really, he worked through me that day, for sure.
Wow.
But never have I experienced it. But that that real strong from the pit, that hard screaming.
Yeah.
So, strong man, right?
Very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, our family always would say when we get mad, don't bring out the Nat Turner in me. Just don't. We good people. The Turners are really, you know, they're really docile, really nice, you know, nice, sweet. But make them mad. Ooh, that's a problem.
Yeah. And
that will come out.
Yeah. And I think even in making that film, you know, it gives license to the reality that we get angry too.
Yes.
And that we want to protect our people too.
Yes, we have the right to.
And if we're not careful, we just might bring Nat Turner out. Yeah. I'm not afraid to say it. A lot of, you know, we get, you know, Audre Lorde has this great quote that says, the master's tools will never be used to dismantle the master's house. Nat Turner was never a tool of the master. Even when he was being educated, no, he was, in my opinion, the hand of God, you know, in the same way that many were in the Bible. You know, he was disciplined. This wasn't a fanatical, you know, revenge fantasy. You know, we know about this writer that we won't say his name, who wrote this propaganda piece on Nat Turner that was fiction that people took as fact.
Yeah.
It was fiction. You know, never has that happened. If I wanted to write a fictional account of Abraham Lincoln and pass it off as truth in this country, what would happen? It would never happen.
No.
You know, so we are taking down banners, and we are dealing with revisionist history when it comes to our heroes and our sheroes. You know, and so, you know, like in my new film, I have this line where, you know, I write why is it that we are the only people that aren't allowed to respond with violence? Every other people, it's
everybody.
You know, I just watched a documentary on Me Lie, and how we sent these soldiers over to Vietnam, and it talks about how they massacred 500 people because they were told to. You know, 500 men, women, and children. You know, just because what? We respond with this country responds with violence 10 out of 10 times, even when there is no threat.
Yes.
We saw on January 6th. Even when they will react with violence when their white supremacy is challenged. You know, so I think, and we can't be afraid to call this out, because this is the legacy we're handing off to our children. If we, you know, people talk about how timely some of these movies are, like, yeah, well, it was timely 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and if we're not careful, it'll be timely in 50 years. So at some point we have to do something differently. And if differently is only telling the truth about our heroes and how they told us what we should and should not tolerate, then so be it.
That's right. That's right. But I just applaud you and thank you so much, you know, for sharing our, you know, ancestors' history, right? Because I know at one point years ago, I heard Spike Lee was interested in doing it, right? And I don't know what happened. But when we finally heard this was in the making, and then we were at the premiere in Norfolk. But that was just, I mean, as I said, it wasn't something that we talked about, bragged about, or anything like that, because this was our family, right? But just to finally be able to be open about it. We
got to clear his name. We got to clear his name, you know, and that's what you have, you know. There are people that we celebrate in our history books that we shouldn't be celebrating, but we do.
Oh, yeah, we do.
You know, we do all day long. People we can talk about all day long. Those history books are full of monsters and demons when it comes to what they did to people who had our skin, you know? So the fact that Nat Turner is reinstated, there's so many people that need to be reinstated. You know, when I go to Kenya, they're talking about Nat Turner. You know what I mean? When in Europe, Nat Turner, he's known. His name has traveled the world in a way that is positive and just. You know, I don't feel like I'm even, you know, in a position to hold his shoes. So the honor that I could bring his story to life, it humbles me more than anything else. You know, so, you know, like again, Terrence, I'm sure you had a direction and some questions you want to ask and stuff, and so I'm sorry to just jump in and go all the way in, but you know, I'm probably more passionate about this subject matter, this man, this family, than anything, you know, outside of my own family.
Well, thank you once again. As I said, we are still here, and Southampton is still receiving, they are receiving maybe almost over $500,000 grant money to do the Nat Turner tour, but not go to the areas, not even talking to the family to see if they can make, the Cave Site area part of the tour. They're going around to the homes of where these people were,
That's not your narrative. That's not your narrative. That's not our narrative. And I think, and one of the things that we should talk more about, I've talked to, different elected officials in Virginia, and there's a monument that will have Nat Turner's name on it. I'm sure you're aware. No, you didn't know that?
No.
Well, okay. So please connect us, Terrence.
Okay.
It's something that I've been fighting for. And there was a lot of fighting around it. And I inserted myself in all ways possible, but we're very, I'm going to get you the details, but his name, I wanted a full monument, and one day I will do that, and I would, hopefully do it with you all. But to have his name on a monument that talks about the history of people in Virginia that look like us, that did amazing things. So, but there's still things that we're fighting to do. He represents, what he represents to you and your family is so near and dear to you. What he represents to me is so near and dear to me. But what he represents to America needs continuous acknowledgement, because he was more patriotic than anyone. He believed more in those words that they wrote than they did. Period.
Yes.
And I think that he has to be acknowledged along the lines of the truest and purest of revolutionaries, because he fought for their words, and that is freedom and justice and liberty for all in the name of God.
In the name of Jesus. That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so let's do it. So there will be those people that hijack the narrative, but it's always been that way. You know what I mean? We understand that is it until there's a shift in power, shift of opportunity, and those things are happening now. But I would love for you to have my information so it's to be in, text linked apart. So when there are things that are happening, we can I can always make sure because when I reached out I was trying to get in touch with you. When I reached out to Kelly, she's like, I got their names, but I, obviously in my notes, but I don't have their direct contact. I don't have their number. And then, there's so many things that people go through when you're doing in the industry, and privacy when it comes to numbers. So make sure, Terrence, please connect us so we can be in touch, because the legacy of Nat Turner is only getting started.
Me and Shelly became friends because of you.
Wait, go ahead. What'd you say?
Yeah, definitely. That's how I met Terrence.
Yeah, because of you, Nate.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about how did that happen?
The movie was coming out, and I wondered if there was any Turner family members that lived near me.
Right.
And I found Shelly on Facebook.
Wow.
And I DM'd her, explained who I was and everything, and we exchanged numbers. We even tried to put together a protest one time when Trump got elected.
We tried our own protest.
A protest of two. No, it's four.
No, one of my sons was with.
And my wife. So, and then me getting to know Elias Shabazz through Shelly, which came through you because of you, and because and also, like when I started at the top of the show, I said, good work has consequences.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And because of that, we the Baileys and Douglases and the Lucases at Lucas Turner's had decided we were going to start sharing family reunions. Like a few come to ours, and we sent a few down there, but because of COVID, we wasn't able to do it. So I mean, there's a whole lot of things.
Well, we'll be back. The world will right itself. It's happening, and what we have to do, the legacy, it's on us. Nat Turner did what he did, not that he'd ever be able to see it, but he did it for us, and so I'm all the way down to be involved with the things that are happening. I'd love to visit the cave. We went down, and which family member is it of yours? He's a shorter gentleman.
Alvin Turner.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah, say it was short.
But I spent some time with him at his home.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and I didn't get to go to the cave, and it was really because it was getting dark. But he spent time with me and talked to me about, you know, the family, and it was really great. It was. I felt a connection to him because I knew, you know how you just know, there are a lot of, by the way, there are a lot of people in the United States of America that say they are related to
Right.
Turner. They are
Yeah,
a whole
yeah,
lot.
like,
And you
yeah.
know what? You know what? Good for them. You know what? Claim that. Let's take a piece of that power, right? And take it with us every day. But then they're the ones you meet that you know. You know, I met with him and someone else was there, but you know, the idea was I was told that Nat Turner had his stature
Exactly.
and looked like just like him.
And the complexion. And that's what
It's
people
fair
are
skin.
confused on his complexion.
Had fair skin. And even when he's described in the documentation, he's described as having lighter skin, possibly a mulatto, you know. So I got to spend some time with him. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. So we got, you know, I say that all to say, you know, I live in Virginia and I'm not so far from Southampton County at all. Matter of fact, my daughter graduated from Southampton High School. My daughter.
Oh, did she?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So, you know, she grew up in Franklin.
Okay.
So,
okay.
So I'm all about being involved. You know, as you guys do things, maybe I'll crash one of your reunions or something.
Well, I was planning to do this year the first Nat Turner Day. Well, I wanted to do it last year, doing in October. Weather is much better, cooler, right around his birthday time, right? So I am working on it. I don't know about COVID this fall, you know, still things
maybe you do it virtually.
Might be a little iffy.
What if you did a virtual? I mean, you know, if you did like a virtual launch of that and did it all on some type of medium such as this, be a lot easier for everyone to attend. That's for sure. And you have run a show and you have something programmatic, and I can maybe pop in if you like. And you do
that would be fantastic.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic. But it's time for him to be honored here in Southampton County, and that is my goal. We have now started the Nat Turner Legacy Foundation. Finally got things now. You know, it's in workings, but we're going to get things moving with that as well, because we want to. My mother, as I said, being the oldest, she's 88. Her wish is to have that park area where kids. She was a teacher for like 40 some odd years, to have children buses to be able to come and to have one of the local historians to tell the story, you know, and just to give them that history that they're so close to, you know, so they will know it's right here, you know. So that is my project. That is my project. I am going to make sure my mother gets what she wants. She's worked very hard.
And when you have something institutionalized, then she's a part of, that's a legacy moment, you know.
Yes.
So if you start something that she's a part of, then you could take that over one day, and you can, you know, whether it be, you know, doing a tour for, you know, I know there's tours being done by our brother there, but adding into that, you know, because if the others are going to do what they do, but what do they say? We need to be less concerned about how they see us, but more concerned about how we see ourselves.
Yeah,
you know, tell ourselves to do the thing that is going to honor our brother. And however I can be involved, I would love to be a part of it.
Oh, definitely. I would love to have that. Definitely love to have that. So, Terrence, if you can connect us, but the foundation, you know, I want to really get some involvement, and I want to get, you know, as I said, it's not about money, it's about the history and letting, you know, the community, bringing the community together, because, you know, still, we had a sign, I don't know, Terrence probably saw it on Facebook. We put a sign outside of the gate, was gated, but where the cave site is, and it was shot up 3 times. And there's no traffic on that back road. It's a dirt road. And we replaced it once and we put it out again. The last shot was here and here in the chest. Here, right there, and then the chest. So
but guess what?
Out there.
They can't last long. They're on their last gasp. They can't last long because the young people won't have it. I think that there's a new energy coming that is that's not as diplomatic as the older folks have been.
Exactly.
I truly believe it, and I truly believe that in empowering the youth, we'll see so many of the changes that we want to see, more so in our generation than we ever would have thought. And I think that technology is to thank for that. You know, I always say if Nat Turner had Facebook, maybe that battle would have been a little differently. Would have went a little different. You know, if Nat Turner had Twitter, you know, or Clubhouse, you know, all these, you know, technology has made it so information can travel at the speed of a button push all the way around the world and back. And so in the same way that a film about Nat Turner may not have had the same impact 40 years ago, it's in a time now where you can't kill it if you wanted to.
Can't.
You just can't. Sorry. You know, and young folks understand that things are now immortalized digitally. They're books that you can't kill it because it's there. It is.
It's there. It is there.
You can't just burn our libraries like you did in Carthage. You know what I mean? Like you did in Mali. You can't just burn them and think that, you know, raise the ground and think that you will literally destroy all remnants of a people. It doesn't happen that way anymore. So as we build legacies and empires now, those legacies and empires will stand until the end of time.
That's right.
Facts.
Exactly.
Hey, Mr. Turner,
Parker, I'll take it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll take it.
Look, I kept doing it with my wife. I kept calling you Nat Turner because I
get it all the time. People, I just let it slide. There's no better badge of honor. If I'm to be associated with any person, living or dead, outside of myself, it is Nat Turner. So I take it. I wear that as the brightest badge. So you know.
I'm from a community called The Hill in Eastern Maryland. It's the oldest African American community still in existence, and that's where I was raised. And we're putting up a mural, a Frederick Douglass mural, because Frederick Douglass he dedicated everything there, all, you know, both churches and everything. And we're putting up a mural. It's going to be the first one of its kind. You know, after you see this mural, if you see another one like it, it's a copy.
Sure.
Because this is we got, I don't know if you ever heard of Mike Rosado, but we got Mike Rosado. He's a muralist.
I have heard of him. He's done something else recently.
He did the Harriet Tubman one with a hand reaching out.
Yeah,
which
that's nice.
That's about 10 miles from my house.
Wow.
So he's doing this mural. So, and man, we're gonna have the unveiling the week before Juneteenth. That's to not interrupt any of the Juneteenth stuff in town. So man, you are more than welcome to come. And
I may be going home in June anyway. Might be a good opportunity. If I can make it, I'll definitely make it. Let's keep that conversation. That's offline. That's beautiful, brother. I think all the monuments, the weekend murals, statues, and the cool thing about it is it's only really a dollar amount, right? You know, so as we gain more and more economic empowerment, I think we'll see way more opportunities to fight for these type of things, these reminders, because that's all they are. You know, the marker in Southampton County is a marker. You know, what did they say in Judas in the Black Messiah is like you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution. You know, so you can shoot up those signs all you want. It doesn't take away the freedom that he gave us, that he gave the Turners and those who are in town. And I think there's a day coming where there's a parade that goes through that town. And I think there's a day coming where everyone recognizes. I think it's a day. I think I'm optimistic, not in the old, but in the new. You know, so we just have to keep fighting for those things and believe God is God. You know, in the same way that Nat believed God was God, even in his tribulation, even as he faced the sword and faced the gun and faced all the things they did to his body. God is still God, and that's why we're here. We're able to celebrate him in this way. I'm sure, even as he thought about freedom, I'm not sure. In all the ways that he would have described it, I'm not sure that he would even describe it as us being able to talk about it like this openly. You know, so we have already surpassed, I would guess, even his wildest. You know what they say? We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. We're living in that. We're sitting in that right now.
Yes, because I know my grandmother and my great grandma would not even believe right now that we are able to sit and have this conversation out loud.
Praise God.
Never. Yes.
Before we get into the current stuff, you have one person wants to tell you his story real quick.
Please.
And then we're going to get into the new stuff.
Okay. You're on mute.
How you doing? How you feeling?
Peace, brother.
Peace and blessings to you. Yeah. I just wanted to tell you, man. How you doing, Queen Shelly? How you feeling?
How are you?
Yeah. You can hear me? I'm
Yes.
good. I'm good. Yeah. I want to tell you, man. You making making the movies and doing what you're doing and the movement that you're doing, very, very vital to my family. Terrence knows my backstory, but my grandfather was killed by the police, and then my grandfather's oldest son, which is my father's oldest brother, he was killed by the police in 1984. And so we went through a chain of events. My grandmother was one of the first people in New York to go against NYPD and win. She didn't win with my grandfather, but she won with my uncle in '84. But the effect that it had on our family is my aunt went to a coma. My uncle, he was on his way to work actually, and the police was chasing down a drug dealer. The drug dealer ran and slid under my uncle's car. My uncle had on a suit and a pea coat, and the officer, he shaking down my uncle as he was getting in his car. My uncle was telling him, "Let me reach in my pocket and show you my ID." And the officer shot at my uncle the first time, put him on his knees and shot at him. And he missed the first time, he grazed him. And my uncle looked up and said, "Oh, you're going to shoot me?" And he shot him again under his eye. And this is what we have this still on tape. And my grandmother won the case, and they tried to say he lunged at him with a knife and things of that nature. But it had a chain of events because his wife was in the house. My aunt was in the house and she was pregnant. She lost the kid. She went into a coma for 2 months. My aunt, his sister, went into a coma. My grandmother, her life changed forever, due to the fact that her husband was murdered in the same manner as her oldest son, her oldest kid. So she dealt with it twice. And I want to explain this and say this because that officer, he never went to jail. He moved to Arizona. We live in New York. He moved to Arizona. And do you know he killed somebody else in Arizona? So he never went to jail, and he was able to walk the streets, and he repeated the cycle again in Arizona. So I just want to let you know, man, we appreciate everything you've done, everything you're doing moving forward. It's greatly appreciated, man. And from my family, today's time, my grandmother, she has Alzheimer's. She don't really remember much, if any, but very important what you're doing. And, it's just appreciated. My family name here in New York, it's we are targeted. We go through a lot here. I was going to school. I'm going to school to be a surgical tech. And when I was coming from school at Queensborough Community College, the cops picked me up. They tried to say I had drugs on me. I didn't have drugs. I had school books on me. They took me to jail, Queens Boulevard. I sat there for 3 days. They tried to say I had drugs on me, tried to say I had a co-defendant, released me on the R&R, gave me a court date to come back, came back. Moral story is they tried to give me an 8 to 25 for something I had nothing on me. I had no drugs. I had school books, textbooks, nursing books. So they just didn't know the history of my family and, the legal representation that we have. So, if it wasn't for that, who knows, But it's greatly appreciated what you're doing. I just want to thank you.
Oh, brother. Well, thank you for sharing that. No one can really know what it's like to deal with the trauma that your family has dealt with and are dealing with every day. And I won't pretend to know. Just know that you have someone out here fighting to lift those voices. Because I think when they're able to suppress the voices, then the programming and the institutions and the institutional racism they never are connected. Is that, you know, when you can yell as loud as you want, but if they're muting your voice, no one can hear you. So all I want to do, brother, with my art is elevate the voices of brothers and sisters like you that are dealing with this trauma. I always say when I'm in interviews and we're talking about how timely people say this is, I said, you know, I would guess that right now, wherever Michael Brown's mother and father are, wherever they are, right now, they are mourning their son. He is in their mind. They're thinking about wherever Tamir Rice's mom is, right this very second. Even if we're on this, I don't know where she is in the world, wherever she is, right now, she's mourning her son. Rihanna, Trayvon, all the way down the list. We forget that it's present for the people that have experienced it and that are experiencing it. We usually get it from a third person, right? Like, man, that video, you are that video. The pain is 1,000-fold, you know? So, brother, I recognize your pain, and I'm sorry that you even have to live with that. Just know that you have a brother that is in these streets with his art, that will not back down, will not take a knee. He's going to keep making this kind of art and getting it to the people. So I appreciate your support and your love, brother. And just know that I'm sending love and prayers to you and your family, and that the fight is going to keep going.
I appreciate you, man.
Of course, man.
Peace and blessings to y'all, man. Thank you, servants.
Salute, man.
Peace. Blessings to y'all.
Oh my God, what happened to Shelly?
I think, did you just close her window?
No, I didn't close anybody's window.
Oh, did she dip out?
No, I think
technology is something.
She probably lost her signal.
Yeah, she'll jump back in.
Yeah, but yeah, thanks, Blue, for speaking your heart. Telling us about your story, and that's a good segue into the next portion of this show. She's back.
I'm back. I'm not sure what happened, if it's on my side or not. Sorry about that.
All right.
You're good. I've watched your current movie 3 times, and I bought it the night you were on Barbershop Conversations.
Okay.
And I've watched it 3 times since then.
Wow.
And that I'm not going to give up any parts of the movie. I'll let you talk about that, but I'm just going to say, the ending had me feeling some type of way. Like me personally, I don't drive, certain places. You know what I'm saying? Just because I got, combat veteran stickers and Army veteran plates and all that kind of stuff, that don't mean anything. Because, cops are there for a good, supposed to be there for a good reason, but not every cop has good intentions. So, yeah, that movie is fire.
Thank you, brother.
And man, I'm gonna let you talk about it, because I don't want to give nothing away, because somebody said, well, man, if you're gonna say all that, what am I buy for? So
yeah. Well, I think that the purpose of the film, is to be, and it's the type of film that even if you hear some stuff, I encourage you to watch it, because it puts into practice in a very explicit way a conversation that we talk about having that we never really have. We talk about the way the United States treats its veterans, but we never really talk about it. We talk about how law officers are programmed to destroy Black bodies, but we never really talk about it, right? Very rarely, if ever, have you seen a police officer kill someone that looks like us and then talk about what he was feeling while it happened in a real and meaningful way. What happens? They get killed. They murder our brothers and sisters, whoever it is. They go away. They get their story. They come back and give us a statement. And the victims of that, like your brother Blue, our brother Blue there, they only get that statement. And they get no in-depth understanding of really the nature of policing and how it's designed to do the very thing that it's doing. And it has been that way since they were patrolling the patty rollers. The first police officers were patrolling the plantation. I think it's important history. In the same way that history is important as we talk about our hero Nat Turner, we have to understand that there's historical context when it comes to the broken relationship with law officers. There's never been a time where law officers didn't brutalize us and intimidate us and destroy our bodies and kill our brothers. There's just never been a time that they didn't. So this is not a George Floyd thing, as my film was made before George Floyd. This is a United States of America thing. And until we're, until we're open to acknowledging that narrative, we can't change that narrative. I made this film to be a representation of where we are right now, for now. You say you felt a certain kind of way about the end of the film. Thank God, good. Because if you didn't, and you were able to just go to, White Castle or whatever restaurants out there and eat and just not think about it, then I've lost. I haven't done my job. I designed that film so the conversation would spill and flood into the streets. So anyone that came in contact with it could not talk about it, but had to deal with it. Anyone that was in any way conscious would have to see it again to see if there were things that they missed, things that could be used as we shift the narrative in real life, So, there are a lot of things in it. We can get to them. And there are things we can talk about. We don't have to talk about the specifics, but I don't want to divert your purpose of the conversation to kind of not have spoilers. I think it's important that we talk about the way you felt. We talk about intention. And if that means kind of shining a light on some of the moments that may make people not want to see the film, then so be it, because I think that's a very slim part of the audience.
I would say this about the film: two things. One, the film will pull on your emotions. If it doesn't, then you don't have any. The other part is, I want to thank you for the way you portrayed your character, the combat veteran. He wasn't portrayed as having PTSD or having all sort of kind of stuff. He was level-headed, calculating. He knew what he wanted. He was always, throughout the movie, he was measured.
Mm-hmm.
He was measured. He was never. You didn't show him as some shell-shocked vet.
Mm-hmm.
Or vet that just, just so bad. He just, he goes to the police department and beats everybody up with his bare hands. Pull some Steven Seagal stuff. You know what I mean? Because he's special forces or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that you portrayed him, is like the vets. It's like my friends.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Hollywood, and I like that.
That means
thank you from me on that.
Brother, you're most welcome, and it means so much because I did a lot of research and interviewed a lot of people, a lot of police officers, a lot of veterans, SWAT. I learned that a lot of SWAT are military, and there's a reason why they're not just killing people without thinking. The chance of you being killed by a SWAT person without you being unarmed and without not having the intent to hurt someone is very slim, because a lot of them have military training. But of course. And you could appreciate this. In one of my interviews with a SWAT, we talked about if you had contact with a negotiator and you stop that contact and all of those people are in danger, and you're not answering the phone, or there's no way for them to get in touch with you, and time passes, you may find yourself in a situation where they get a green light to pull the trigger. And, so from a standpoint of a combat veteran and a director talking, the research, supported the ending in that way. But I did want to project him or present him as a mentally ill person. It doesn't take a mentally ill person to say enough is enough when you take their child. It just takes a human being that loves their child. Yeah. Simple as that. I love my children very much, and I don't have combat training. But if I felt someone was coming to my home to hurt my children, I go into my closet and I come out with something that would make sure that I could protect my children, and I would not hesitate. That doesn't make me post-traumatic stress. I mean, if that's the case, all of us have post-traumatic stress. But who wouldn't, after the trauma that we're put through every day, just walking out of the house and it being a dice roll on if we make it back alive? There's something wrong, Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I've been reading research here lately where they're saying that the trauma is passed down. Mm-hmm. Genetically. Mm-hmm. And it reminded me of when I was growing up on the hill, there was this one dude. He was definitely afraid of dogs. Mm-hmm. But I don't know of a time where he got bit by a dog.
Yep.
His parents didn't own a dog, But as soon as I brought my little dachshund, little hot dog outside, he'd have a fit.
Yeah.
And I think that's passed down.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Behavior.
Somebody in his lineage probably, probably in Talbot County, because it was slaves there, probably was chased by dogs or was definitely afraid of dogs, or had something happen. I believe that stuff is passed down.
Yeah, let's talk about the 70s. You don't have to go back to slavery for when dogs were being used to kill and dismember people. We talk about the lynchings in this country, right? That still happen to this day. These are real occurrences where Black people are beaten and skinned at times and roasted on fires. Like, this is real. There's a book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGruy that talks about how that behavior is handed down, how in the same way that we have to talk to teach our kids trauma, how we have to traumatize our kids by protecting them. The same thing happened on the plantation, where a mother had to teach her daughter how to dumb herself down, and so she wouldn't get chosen by an overseer, or how to teach her son how to cock his head down and look at the ground when he's asking for something, so the master wouldn't feel threatened and kill him on the spot. Mm-hmm. All of these behaviors have been passed down generation. And there has to be some type of historical context or some type of acknowledgement of the narrative if we're going to change the narrative. Even the way that we have traditionally beaten our kids. Like, I've seen people in my family. I've just seen it. I was beaten. It was just it's a way of life. You get the switch, you're going to get a whooping, and you're whipped until the whelps in your legs are bleeding. We didn't do that in Africa.
And go get your own switch.
Go get your own switch.
Go
get another one. I'm going to braid these switches, and I'm going to beat you with that. I'm going to beat you with extension cord. I'm going to beat you. You're going to get a whooping. Don't touch nothing. Where did that? I tell a story about one time I was with my mom in the grocery store, and I couldn't have been more than, 5 or 6. And when I was growing up in Norfolk, my mom always say, we're going to go in the store. Don't you touch nothing. You stay next to me. You better not get too far behind me or too far in front of me. I didn't know what that meant. I just thought, Mom say something, I got to do it. Now I remember walking with my mom, and there was this little white kid in the cereal aisle. Favorite aisle as a kid is the cereal aisle, right? This kid put his arm out and was walking and wiping off cereal boxes onto the floor. And I looked at him and I was like, oh my goodness, he is about to get the whipping of his life. He's going to get beaten into the inch of his life, the whipping of all whipping. This kid, the mother turned around as if she didn't even see the cereal boxes and said, Timmy, get over here. Timmy sped up to his mom and they just walked that out. And I looked up at my mom like, are you going to beat the kid? Like, what is going on? The whole world was flipped upside down for me. Why? Yeah. Because I was taught, if you get out of line, if you're in public and you do something you're not supposed to, that's right, you're going to get a whipping. You're going to get beat right there in the. Now, where does that come from? Well, Emmett Till, right? We don't have to go far to know what can happen if you get too far away from your mama, or if you say the wrong thing, or if you knock something over and it breaks. This is Virginia, the lynchings in Virginia. Let's talk about it, right? So that behavior of protecting your kids by threatening them, by over-disciplining them, by not letting them react to the world as if it's theirs, like white folks do. We're taught at a very young age we have no privilege, that the rules don't apply to us. This is real. So when you talk about it being passed down, absolutely the trauma is alcohol, alcoholism and all these things like, oh, his daddy drank and his daddy's daddy. Well, he beat his wife. Well, his dad beat his wife, or his mom was beat. Like all of these behaviors, we want to attach trauma counseling to, but no one wants to give any counseling to us for what we are enduring day by day in this country that refuses to recognize our humanity. This is just one movie on one subject in a nation that is flooded with trauma that everyone's drowning in.
And you go from Birth of a Nation into American Skin. So it's kind of like the same problem in a different time frame.
Right.
You know, so what's so different to the characters, the two characters that died in your movie in American Skin? What is the difference between them and the people in the insurrection during with Nat Turner?
Oh yeah, what's the difference in the fight? Well, both I think both films ask us a question, and that question I believe is, what are we willing to tolerate? What are we not willing to tolerate? You know what I mean? If we can't protect our children, then who are we as human beings? Who is our God if we don't, if he has put us here just to have to suffer these injustices and do nothing? Now, while it seems like those stories are similar, I would go so far as to say that is the story of all of us. Brother Blue right there, that's his story.
Facts.
Right?
Yep.
Until that's his story. Brianna is her story. Dred Scott is his story. But it's also the story of the person who moved into the wrong neighborhood and was lynched. It's also their story. It's also the person that couldn't move into the neighborhood because the real estate agent did exactly what the cop does, but just didn't have a gun. You can weaponize your white supremacy in so many different ways. We see it. You've probably seen it in the world of journalism over and over again. You give me an industry, and I will give you Lincoln Jefferson. I'll give you this character. I'll give you Nat Turner. I'll give you all the people who have suffered injustices just trying to live and breathe and be free. So there's no, I didn't say I'm going to make another version of this. I said, well, what are we dealing? What is the crisis we're dealing with in America right now? And it was personal to me because I had just gotten custody of my nephew from my sister. My sister asked me to help with my nephew who was going to school in Portsmouth, which is public schools are remarkably broken. Communities are remarkably broken. There's no support. When you see the way Virginia Beach is dealt with, as opposed to, the school systems in Virginia Beach, and then you look at the school systems in Portsmouth, Churchland, and Norcom, and you can see really quickly the why in the prison to the school to prison pipeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So again, I'm saying all of this to say, at some point, we have to be honest about where we are and confront it. If we ever want healing and reconciliation, if we ever want things to shift and change, they won't just change because we're trying to will them into change, and they definitely won't change by, I'm going to put this in a way that I don't get in trouble, but by the ascension of some who turn their back on our crisis because they have more stuff than they had before they were allowed to be in that conversation.
How about that?
Yeah. You brought up Dr. Dietz earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess all three of us know her.
Yeah.
But we're she's leading a program right now in Virginia, where a bunch of stolen tombstones from Black Cemetery were thrown into the Potomac. So they're trying to reunite those tombstones with the proper gravesite. My 5 times great grandfather, the older brother Frederick Douglass, is one of those tombstones.
Wow.
We can't find. And then they moved the body to PG County. They moved all the graves to PG County. And then when I said, well, if we find my grandfather's tombstone, where am I going to put it? Because they said, well, we can't tell you exactly where he's buried, but we can tell you what section. That does me no good. So why were, if it was a white cemetery, they wouldn't have thrown those, the tombstones would have went with the bodies. Right. But this guy took the tombstones and he used them as riprap to keep his land from eroding. So that's privilege. But luckily, the governor of Maryland and the governor of Virginia and the mayor of DC, everybody's working together. Got the Army Corps of Engineers. Everybody's working together to get those tombstones out of the water and reunited. So you got some people trying to right the wrongs, but even in those things, I still ask one simple question: motive. Are you doing it because I'm saying people that don't look like us? Are you doing it because you really, really care, or are you going to get reelected on this?
Right. Well, let me tell you like this. When people from other communities want something done, they seem to care less about what mainstream society thinks and more about what they want. I said, I think maybe even on this call, I think that we have to be less concerned about how the majority sees us and more concerned about how we've been conditioned to see ourselves. And I say this to say, we can't depend on people who are not us to just be willing to do the work that's going to benefit us, especially when it comes at the cost of their privilege. And I say this as a man that has to raise money oftentimes from white people to tell a story that would inevitably bring equity to Black people, that would inevitably take away privilege of the very people who are giving me money. Because the way scales work, scales don't work like this. They just don't. So when we're asking about equity and equality, we're not saying we're just going to do that and then have everything that we want. What we're fighting against is wealth disparity, healthcare disparity, educational disparity. All these things, disparity is there's a gap. To bridge that gap will come with us tearing down some systems. It just gotta go. It won't just be someone feeling like, you know what? We're going to give them that because we care. Reality is no one gives up privilege without a fight. Nobody.
We saw that on the 6th.
That's right.
We damn sure did, because we're over here protesting. You know, when people try to compare the protest, you know, what about the riots? We're fighting so we don't get killed in the street, our children.
Yeah.
Facts.
You're fighting for the value assessment of pale skin. They're not the same. And that's not an anti-white statement or da-da-da. That's just common sense. You're fighting for the weight of white supremacy. You're fighting for the endurance and diligence of anti-Black racism. Like, what are we talking about? And you are literally fighting to get the tombstone reunited with the body of your family member. Are you asking too much, brother? Nope. But I think there has to be a shift in the narrative. And that shift only comes with an acknowledgement of the narrative. When you ask people where we are and they tell you, well, you can't deny that we have some progress. What? That's not the narrative. That's an excuse.
It's either that or the whole thing doesn't exist.
Yeah. You know, or it's, what about Dr. King?
What about it?
Only thing Dr. King said, according to our history, is, I have a dream, right? And hate can't drive out hate. Only love can do that. He said those things, but he also said there were two Americas.
He also said he think he let his people into a burning house.
Absolutely did. He also said, you know, people talk about Lincoln, but no Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation can bring about the freedom that we need. Only us standing up and asserting our own manhood and womanhood. These are the words that we skim across as we sanitize the message of someone, because we want to make sure we can use him. And I say we being America, United States of America, we want to use him to preserve privilege. Because look, equity is not everyone just one day waking up and saying we are equal just because we say so. You know, like just because we can lock arms. Equity looks very different than that. Very different. No one wants to have the reparations conversation. No one wants to talk about what they did to us or what they did to decimate the indigenous, and how and so often us as people fleeing from enslavement had to align with the indigenous to survive. And we are the most devastated people on this soil.
Well, you know, it's not helping our cause much when we got people like Herschel Walker saying what he was saying about reparations.
But you know what, brother? How about this? My mentor told me this. He said, the doctor doesn't blame the patient for being sick. He just helps bring about the medicine. I will never disparage any of my brothers and sisters on any publication ever. Not you, ma'am, queen, not anybody. Because as we talked about, that trauma is learned. we've been traumatized to the point where we fight against our damn selves. It's true.
Yeah, we do.
Facts.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not going to let anyone distract me. It's like when I was talking about police brutality and someone says, well, what about, what's happening in Nigeria? I said, I don't want to have that conversation right now. I want to have the conversation about here and how I get pulled over in my neighborhood once or twice a year. Let's talk about that. I'm not going to disparage Africa. Yes, there are certain issues globally we need to talk about. But the day you get me on a call talking about pointing my finger at the branch and not the root is the day that I'm gonna stop talking. So whoever we want to bring up in their dysfunction or their misguidedness or just their lack of information, because reality is I grew up in Virginia. No one was teaching me Brother Frederick Douglass on a granular level. I didn't read his autobiography until I was grown.
Yeah.
The way they made it sound was that Lincoln freed the slaves and there was no one there forcing his hand, named Brother Frederick Douglass.
Fact.
He didn't want to sign that document. If he could have gotten around signing that document, he would have taken any other, pushed the easy button a million times.
He even said that in so many words.
Yeah, Frederick Douglass like, listen, bro, first of all, y'all losing the war. So what happens if you lose? Why are you going to let these brothers fight? But again, we don't learn this history. Nobody read no books.
Sure. Nope.
What we doing? We chasing the bag. All we doing is chasing the bag. Now I get the bag. I get the bag. I get the bag. But what we do when we get the bag, we just give it back to them.
That's the thing that's going to happen. That's the thing that's going to happen with reparations. I don't understand what they're. I mean, if they gave out reparations, it was in a cash form. Right. It's going right back into the economy. So,
of course, but look, but that's the thing. Again, power, right? I personally believe that people of African descent in this country started to recognize that we were brought here as chattel and brought here as refugees, and we decide that no longer will we attach that refugee-like status. We're actually going to reconnect to the diaspora, to Africa, and claim our psychological inheritance, and start thinking like someone that has come to a place to exploit that place for a home place like everyone else. I think that will bring about economic empowerment. They'll bring about financial literacy. They'll bring about more of an importance put on culturally responsive education. Because those are the things, when we talk about reparations, you know what? I don't want any money. Just help me get my identity back. Who the F am I as a people? Because all that has been stripped away from us. So yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, they just gave every black person $2,000. Chances are that's not going to solve the problem. But I do think that there's work to be done in the space of education. There's work to be done in the prison industrial complex. There's work to be done on a roots level. And there are people in the ground doing that work. I don't pretend to know everything. There are a lot of things I don't know. But what I do know is that there are some brothers and sisters doing the work. When we talk about, color of change, Brian Stevenson, we talk about Black Lives Matter, there are people that are way more in the know than I am that are doing the work every day. And all I want to do is create the type of art that can contribute to the conversation. I don't know if my art is going to solve anything. I do believe it can add to the conversation in a meaningful way, though.
Your art, as you can see with us three sitting here, brings together. I mean, it makes good trouble.
Thank you.
I put it like that. It makes good trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it wasn't for your art, your mind, and your drive to get the shows out there where people can see them and start the conversations, the Shelly and them wouldn't have gotten the remains because it brought the awareness of it because nobody was talking about it. Nobody was talking about that. That's her great grandfather, and she couldn't even say his name outside of her house. But when you came along and you did what you did, then she could. Matter of fact, there's a guy down there in the court. Tell me about the guy down in the courthouse that has the sword.
And you saw it?
Did I see it? when we started this conversation, I said there's a person I won't name.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's the same person who's doing the tour I
Of
was
course,
talking
I know.
about.
I spent a great deal of time in Southampton County, and I know exactly how it all runs. And this person basically said, if he saw the film and he feels like I made the good folks of Southampton County look bad, then he will get what did he say? He'll get a cutout of a newspaper and put a post-it over my face. I said, well, but I saw the sword with my own eyes. You know what? Hey, let's just say I saw the sword with my own eyes, and I plotted for a long time of how I might get that sword.
Because
How about that?
When I found out about it, I was like, "Well, Shelly, y'all should have that. Why is that there?"
Exactly.
Because there's money to be made. It's plain and simple. There's money to be made. You know,
And they are making that money off of the tour, which is crazy.
I already know.
Oh,
let me tell you
so
something.
disturbing.
Let me tell you something. Like everything I do with a plan.
Right.
And I'll leave it at that, just because, I do believe that as Black folks, there's some conversation has to happen. We got to be able to close the door.
Oh, no question. No question. He actually questioned if I was indeed a descendant. I was told that he questioned that. I read it in the paper, in the Chicago paper. And so I called him, just because he didn't know me. Right. That doesn't mean that, I'm not a descendant. But then as I told him Alvin, who you went to visit, that I was, Alvin Turner's cousin, but I didn't need him to, to justify, him to be the person to, give me, to validate who I was. No. So I said, I hear you questioning, if I'm actually a descendant. And then, he twisted, he was like, oh, no.
That's privilege, though. Like, that's the whole point, right? Well, if we're asking for equity, and sometimes equity can be the simplest question, but if it requires someone to give up privilege, you're going to have a fight. That's a human trait. People aren't going to give up. Like, if that is connected to the way he feeds his family, you think he's going to give it up just because it's the right thing to do? Of course not.
Then he invites me to come down to the courthouse, and have a conversation, just meet him and have a conversation. But, I'm not really interested in it. I want that sword back. If it was his, if it was Nat's, why are you holding it? It belongs to us. It belongs to us,
What do they say? Freedom will never be given from the oppressor. It must be demanded.
Yeah.
And when you start talking like that, people get scared. I know. Look, trust me. When this trailer was going to hit for American Skin, boy, we're going to talk about some conversations. People were like, are we sure we want to put this trailer out? Like, are we sure we want to introduce it? But I had creative control. I was like, well, let me be the person that, if it goes south, I'll take the weight, whatever. And it hit. You know what I mean? There were images that people just are not used to seeing. You didn't see people singing, and not to disparage We Shall Overcome, because I think there's a place for that. But there's also a place for the flame. I believe that in my spirit.
It's all facts, man. Good luck. Well, I think it was like last, like, I would say last spring or towards the summer, I first seen, some things about American Skin online. And I'm thinking that the movie was already out, you know what I'm saying, at the time or whatever. So I'm on all my platforms or whatever, with Amazon and
iTunes, all that.
Yeah, working that body set wasn't available. So I was like, okay, well, let me go check out the reviews. Checked out the reviews from last year. Do not reflect that movie I've been watching. I've watched 3 times since you were on.
Of course they do. If the goal is to make it so no one sees that film, my whole thing is this: like, people. I don't think our ancestors did what they did in hope that they would be celebrated over a weekend, or in hope that their oppressors would approve. I think they did what they did because they were desperate to see the change that needed to happen in their communities. And not to align myself with my ancestors as to say that I've done things as powerful as they have. But I will say my goal with this film is not to get anyone's validation. As you said, Miss Shelly, like, I don't need anyone to tell me that it's good or bad. I don't need, like, there are people that if that's your job, then do your job. That's fine.
That's right.
My job is to give the medicine to the people. And my hope is that this art has been some sort of medicine or some sort of whistle that puts a rod in our back, you know, and reminds us of what we should and should not tolerate when it comes to protecting our children. That's, you know, what people think about it is what they think. You can't, you know, there are people that won't go with it. They won't go. That's okay. No hate, no shade to them. They're allowed to think everything that they want. They're allowed to use their platform in the way that they think that is best. But so am I. I'm allowed to use my platform in a way that I hope will liberate my people. I'm allowed to get on these platforms and talk about it and hope that the word of mouth continues. Because again, I had no money. I had no time. You know what our marketing budget for this film was? Yes.
15 million.
Our marketing budget was $0.
Wow.
The marketing budget for well, I don't want to call out a milk. Let's just say one of the last films that deals with part of our crisis. You're pretty close into what their marketing budget was. Our marketing budget is $0. They said we will put this movie out, but we have no money. So we had to put together, you know, I have a remarkable publicist, Sandra Butcher, the team 135, all Black agency sisters. With no money, they were able to put together a word of mouth digital campaign that had Diddy talking about the film, LeBron James talking about it, get it out to people in the word of mouth in the same way that the grapevine. We talk about our freedom. You know, they weren't putting leaflets in the newspaper for the Underground Railroad. We talk about things that help bring about freedom. They were talked about in whispers in the quiet places. So I hope that this film has that same impact. That if nobody knows about it, we know about it. And if nobody's supporting it, we're supporting it. And if it gives nobody else freedom, it gives us freedom, or at least takes us one more step toward it.
But it's wonderful that you are
art.
not afraid, right? To be able to speak the truth. And I wish there were many others like that, to be able to step out. As I said, when you started with Birth of a Nation, the trailers and the teasers, and you know that one where that was at the premiere, you know, phenomenal. But it's good to see a Black man not afraid, right? And you stepped out, and you stepped out well. But I tell you, Virginia was probably the only place that did not give its just due. Any other state, New York, out west, Chicago.
That's what we're talking about, right? That goes back to your question. But guess what? The legacy is in motion and it is intact. You can't stop it. You just can't. It is a runaway train. And above that is, I believe, that the narrative of our ancestors is anointed by God. You can't put a lid on it if you want to. These things will come to light and they will bring about our freedom. And I'm gonna fight for it as long as there's breath in my lungs. A brother just asked, will it be available in UK? Absolutely. In April, it's gonna go global. So they're gonna have it in on the continent in Africa. They're gonna have it in UK. They're gonna have it in Europe. You know, to the people that haven't seen it yet, it's gonna go. That's the beauty of digital. That's the beauty of technology. You can try to kill it before it grows if you want to. Go ahead. Be my guest. But young folks ain't having it. Like you said, I represent my generation, and there are strong men and women in my generation that are unafraid. But the generation behind me,
those millennials,
you know, I have a foundation called the Nate Parker Foundation. And our sole job is, you know, to support storytelling amongst Black youth through the cinematic arts. So we put cameras in their hands, we fund them, and we allow them to tell their stories. Because they're more American skins, they're more, you know, Birth of a Nation. There's stories about brothers and sisters, heroes and sheroes that you've never heard of that are going to come to the surface. It's all bubbling. All we got to do is turn up the heat. And when it starts to boil, all those bubbles will come into the circle, all those stories, all those narratives and ancestors. We don't live in a vacuum. Time is on our side when it comes to telling our stories. It may not happen this year, may not happen next year, but the stories are coming. And my job is to really give permission to a nation of filmmakers that are unafraid. Because the more people who are unafraid, that are afraid to stick their neck up and know that it could get chopped,
yeah,
more of our stories are going to be told. That's sacrifice. That's the thing that people aren't willing to do anymore. No one's willing to. Back in the day, felt like everyone was willing to die. Now people aren't even willing to lose their job.
I've heard one dude. I'm not gonna say his name, but he has a big following in the conscious movement. And this dude said, "I don't want to be a leader. Leaders get killed."
Yeah. Well, guess what? There's trauma and truth to that statement. Should we perpetuate it? No. Should we demonize him? No. Because he's right. Now, should that stop us from stepping into leadership? No. Should it stop him to stepping into leadership? No. But I'll say again, should we demonize him for it? No. Why? Because our job is to give the medicine. Other cure, you ain't never heard, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Lord Jesus, guide my mouth that I don't get in trouble. But you've never heard, I've never heard, a Chinese woman or a Chinese man saying, "Oh, this B ain't SHIT," or "This N ain't SHIT," never. I've never seen people turned against each other in other communities like it's used as a device for us. I've never seen it. I've never seen people get on TV in other communities and just say, "Yeah, all these chicks, all these whatever," never, or all these Negroes, or these whatever, never. The only people that have been programmed to do that is us. And I'm not saying you're doing it. I'm just saying we have to be careful when it comes to recognizing the root and distinguishing that from the branch. We have to recognize when something comes up, like, oh, that's the root. If we change the way we water this root, we change the way we educate our young people, then that will take care of itself. Because this is a divisive technique when they turn us against, I had a person ask me publicly on a publication, "So what do you think about this guy? He's crazy, right? Mental illness, right?" I said, "This individual is my brother." "Well, what do you mean?" "I mean, he's my brother." And that was the end of that line of questioning. There's no amount of money that anyone that they can ever give me to disparage people that look like me. I don't care what they've done. They'll deal with that on their time. God will deal with them. I'm no judge of anyone. I got my own issues. My job is to use my art to add to the conversation that pushes us forward, and I will not be distracted and pulled into some fight. You know what Brother Frederick Douglass said? Why did he say that he would not participate in the boxing that would happen on Sundays when they handed out alcohol? He said, "I will never participate or compete against someone who looks like me, that shares this issue as being Black in America." Frederick Douglass said that. Why? I'm not going to punch another brother in the face while the master sits on the porch and drinks lemonade and knock another brother out to show how strong I am. These are not my words. These are words of your ancestor, our ancestors, mine by proxy. So I'm passionate about that, as you can tell.
Yeah.
I think that all of our energy that exists in us, all the breath that is in our lungs, right? All the knowledge that is in our heads, and all the wisdom from the ancestors must be channeled into a singular movement, a moment of solidarity that can echo into the future. So when we do it, the next generation does it, and the next generation does it. Because we're not missing the capacity, we're missing the we. So we have to be careful every time. When someone said this, and it's a quote, I can't think of the person that said it, but I don't know if it was Maya Angelou or Toni Morrison or someone. They said, if the people don't want to ask your opinion when things are going on, and they only want to ask your opinion when it has to do with trashing someone that looks like you, then ask yourself, is this some person you should be talking to? That quote stuck with me. I was like, that's true. They don't give us no ink until we're ready to kick dirt on people who look like us. And then they want to give us all the microphones in the world. That's a problem. It's problematic. We need to know when to hold our tongues and when to scream.
Facts.
Big
Man, you
facts.
definitely you definitely own it, man. And
Yeah.
I tell you, man, when you put your products out there or whatever, man, I know I speak for the community I come from. But don't don't nobody want to hear that negative stuff when that certain people try to put on your name. You know what I'm saying? When you come out with something new and all that kind of stuff, you're like, nah, man, I'm going to spend my money. I want to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? You know, what does this have to do with that? Why are you talking about that? Let's you know what I mean? If it was Spielberg, you know what I'm saying, it'd be on every billboard in every town.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm saying? So that's one I had to say that because that's one thing that irritates me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? When a brother or sister
Mm-hmm.
is doing something positive, actually doing something positive, and has to sell this whatever. There's always something in the media that will try to say, you know, they will try to throw some dirt on it. Because you think about it, did everybody really want to see Birth of a Nation? And then because of its context, and then the name, there was another movie named Birth of a Nation, and it was about the Klan.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when just that title alone, I grinned. I was grinning from ear to ear just for the title. You know what I'm saying? But I'm you know, it
He
brought
just
me
dared to
together.
do something and speak on something that other people were afraid to talk about, right? And it bothered so many people, you know, and those are things that they wanted to forget, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, this was a powerful man. This was a smart man. This was a spiritual man, right? But he had enough. Enough was enough. And he did what he thought he was supposed to do.
And he did it in the name of God. And I think that's important.
Yes.
Two things that that Birth of a Nation and American Skin have in common. That these were good, sane, measured men.
Yes.
Who did the right thing and paid the ultimate price.
Yeah.
These weren't crazy people. They weren't out for revenge. They weren't bloodthirsty just for the sake. Because if they were, then there's an argument around how helpful the story is, right? Like, these are men that Turner prayed more than anyone we know. He preached and he studied that Bible, and he's like, if you're real, Lord, and I know you are, then what is this all about? Nat Turner knew about Jericho. He knew about it. He knew about how the Lord had soldiers so blinded they start killing each other. Like, this is biblical.
Yeah.
Knowledge
is power. Knowledge is power.
And guess what? We have been disconnected from the most powerful source outside of our faith that we can have, and that is knowledge. Yeah. I went to Portsmouth schools, went to Norfolk schools, and I'm telling you, I didn't learn anything until I got to college.
Hey, Nate.
Yeah.
Saptosa has jumped in. I think she's about to tell us that's our time.
Okay. Well, you can wrap it up, brother. I'll let you wrap it up. Yes, she probably texted me too. I got to jump. I do smell dinner in the house, which means my girls are probably and my wife are around that table. So Saptosa, let's let him since it's visual, he can wrap it up and then we'll go. I see you jumping in, but yeah. So go ahead, brother. I'll let you do your thing.
Hey man, everybody, thanks to everybody who came into the chat, man. The chat was full. I know you were watching it.
Mm-hmm.
The chat was full tonight. Everybody's loving you, man. You're getting a lot of love from the chat, man. From out of UK, California, the network, nationwide, and this will be rebroadcast on Soul Talk 100. It's Yours Radio on the TuneIn app. It's over 50 million subscribers. So, man,
everybody everyone in the comments, want to let you know I appreciate you. You know, I'm obviously nothing without my support. You know, a piece of art that people don't support is just localized to the place where it was created. So the fact that this thing is traveling across the United States of America and soon to go into the South America and other continents, I want to just let you all know that You know, as long as there's breath in my body, I'm going to keep dealing with these tough issues, these awkward issues, these painful, traumatic issues, and doing my best to remind the world of our humanity, to remind the world of our greatness, to remind the world that although we have been enslaved, we were enslaved in this country for this long, that there's a even greater legacy that we come from, and that those stories need to be told as well. I'm working on that. So there are stories I'm telling about here in this soil, but then, you know, there's stories I'm telling about other places in the diaspora, other places where kings and queens ruled and empires were built. And I think those things are important for our children as well. So thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for having me, brother.
Man, I appreciate you, man. And big sis over there. And she thought all I gotta do is call her. She's like, yeah, Terrence, I'll be there.
I'm here for you. When I found out I was a little intimidated a bit. I was like, oh my goodness, am I ready for this? But once again, from the Turner family, thank you so much for telling our story.
And from the Bailey side and the Douglas side of Frederick Douglas family, I appreciate you too, man. My cousin, yes. because we pushed back the time, it conflicted with Black History Month panel he had to get on. So I'm going to connect you two together and also with him, because
we'll do it again.
Yeah.
Brother.
All right, man. Hey, can we get a movie on Taharka, man? We need that, man.
Look, there's so many stories. Send me that. I'm working on a lot. So funny. Someone sent me something on Frederick Douglass as well not too long ago. So and that's also, all these stories need to be told. All these stories need to be told. So I'm working on it. I need to just start like a message board. So all the stories I can, and now that I have the foundation, I have 133 young people that have come through the program. So that's 133 cameras, 133 stories. You know, I can't scale myself and tell them all. It takes about a year to put the project together and bring it to fruition. But let me tell you something. I got an army behind me of young folks that ain't scared. So, you know, I'll be able to bring a lot more of these projects to fruition.
What's the contact information? Tell everybody where they can for your foundation, your social media.
Right. NateParkerFoundation.org. You know, and I don't take no money from my foundation. I raise all the money myself, grassroots. You know, the Ford Foundation has supported us. The Kellogg Foundation has supported us. You know, anything that you give goes directly to putting cameras in the hands of young people, so they can keep pushing this ball forward. So brothers in Vietnam. I see that comment. Working on that. I was actually, just like I said, I just watched a documentary on My Lai, and talking about the trauma that's come out of there and the brothers that are put in that position and come home to nothing. There are a lot of things we're working on. So you know, keep the faith. You know what I mean? Let's keep adding to the legacy of our ancestors, and let's keep our faith in the Lord strong. You know, that we're on our way. In Jesus' name, Shelly would say.
Appreciate you, man. You set it on fire in here for Black History Month, brother.
Thank you, brother. It's my honor. I'll talk to y'all later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Well, Shelly, I believe that was phenomenal.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah, that was fire.
I'm so glad you allowed me to be a part of this.
Well, there was there was no other way I could think of doing it. If I'm going to have Nate Parker, if I'm going to ask him for one, I got to ask you, because we wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for his work.
Exactly. How random though was our meeting to how many years? It's been what? It's been since 16, right?
Yeah,
16 or 17.
16. No, we were talking. We didn't meet in person until probably 17.
But
the day of the inauguration.
We started like in 16 though, having conversation.
Yeah, and then we met up for our little protest.
Me, Trey, Michelle, and you.
Yeah.
Hey, but we were ready. You know, we were ready.
We was an army though.
Right.
We was there. We was there. We showed up.
And it was cold that day too. It was cold that day. Uh-huh. Yeah. But this was great.
Yeah. This was definitely a good show. I appreciate everybody for coming in. I will update you on any new shows that I have that I'm going to schedule, and this one right here might round out Black History Month for us, unless Eliasa wants to come on. But other than that, I think just I think we're going to end the Black History series on that note because the brother ripped it.
He did. He did.
All right. Catch everybody later.
Have a good one.